Okay, so I am like legitimately upset about this. I know it may seem stupid to a few of you guys out there that are like, why are you so upset about this? And it's because I don't want the Army to become softer, right? I don't want the Army to be less physically capable, and the scores that I am seeing on this proposed ACFT PT test are going to do just that, in my opinion. Now, I think it's great to make the PT test, you know, in a way that you're going to be more combat ready if you pass the PT test, but to make the standards so low from what I'm seeing from these proposals, whenever I made my video on the ACFT PT test, there wasn't really anything that came out. And from what I'm looking at here, I think is August 4th. So very recently that this most recent proposal has came out. And so I'm looking at these scores and I'm just thinking to myself, oh my gosh. And I'm gonna kind of read off, and I'll probably display here the scores and everything, but I'm just looking at these and I'm just like, why? You know, it's a great thing that they're making the PT test, you know, gender neutral. I think that is something that we kind of needed in the military, you know, with the females doing more combat related MOSs. I think that's great. One of the problems that I think is arising from this is that the PT test is also age neutral, and the only thing that's gonna matter whether or not you're gonna have to do one PT score minimum versus another minimum is your MOS and how much combat your MOS is going to see. So you're gonna have, basically, if you guys, you know, if you join the military, you're gonna have to take this test called the OPAT, and you're gonna be in these categories as like heavy, medium, or light, or something like that. So there's 3 different categories. The more combat related to your MOS, the more physically capable you have to be. It's the same thing with the new PT test, the ACFT PT test, which is going to be implemented in October of 2020. So we got about 2 years or so. And looking at these scores, like even for the heavy, in my opinion, I don't think is good enough. Like I was expecting basically it to be like the minimum of the non-combat related MOSs to be the minimum of the heavy, like for infantry. Like why in the world is the minimum run time now 18 minutes for infantry soldiers, whenever it used to be like 16:30 if you were like 17 to 21? Like why did they make that so much easier for the minimum? Like I understand like maybe increasing the maximums, right? Because right now the 300 is the maximum you can get for the PT test. You can get more than a 300 on the extended scale, right? So like my max on the extended scale has been 338 points, even though in the books it's just a straight up 300. So because people are able to score higher, I don't see any harm in making the maximum like very difficult to get. Like if you get the maximum, like you are just outstanding. Now a lot of people can get the maximum on the PT test, but to make the minimum lower is, I think, pretty ridiculous. Now I think the age is having a factor with this, right? So right now, if you are an 18-year-old infantry soldier versus a 45-year-old sergeant major or something like that, you are going to have the same standard for your PT test. Now this isn't like a gender thing, right? So we're not comparing an 18-year-old male versus an 18-year-old female. We're comparing an 18-year-old soldier versus a 40-something-year-old soldier, or in some cases, you know, 50s. And I think that's a little bit different than comparing 2 18-year-olds of different sexes versus somebody of the same or different sex. So right, we're comparing basically now an 18-year-old male to a 45-year-old female, right? So the older you are, you know, you're not going to be able to do as well on the PT test. Like that's just going to be like, that's how it goes. Right now, the older you get, every like 4, like 5, maybe 6 years, 4 or 5 years, something like that, about every 5 years or so, the PT test, the standards get a little bit easier for the minimums. They actually increase the standards for the maximums, you know, until I think you reach like age 30 or something. That is whenever the maximums start coming down. But, you know, the minimums are going to be lowered just a little bit. So, you know, if you're a 40-year-old, it's not going to be the same thing as, you know, a 20-year-old. And the proposal that I think I have for this, like if anybody out there who actually has some kind of say in this, is to make somewhat of an age system again, but not so much like how it was before. So before, you know, there was like 17 to 21, then 22 to like 26, and then it's like 27 to 31, something like that. If we were to like cut that in a third. And so from like, 17 years old to like, 30-year-old, those are basically the same. 31 to like 41 or something, those are like the same. And have a bigger age group, that would help things out a little bit. And the reason that I think it should be like that, right? The reason that I think a 40-year-old's PT test score, regardless of male or female, should be different than a 20-year-old's is because at that point in time in your military career, you're gonna have different roles, you're gonna have different responsibilities for officers, right? Especially for officers. Let's say I'm a second lieutenant, which I am. I'm a second lieutenant, you're gonna be with your soldiers a little bit more, you're gonna be actually kind of with the platoon a little bit. Then you become a first lieutenant, then you become a captain, and as a captain, you're gonna be probably a company commander. You're gonna be a little bit more separated from the soldiers, you're gonna be having a little bit more desk work and stuff to do, and then you become a major, and you're gonna be more removed. And the higher rank you go, the more removed you are from like the grit of like the soldiery tasks that you're gonna do, the things that you really need to have a good PT score to be running out there like as a second lieutenant. Platoon leader, you're gonna be out there with the guys, with them. You're gonna be leading the platoon, right? Well, when you become a lieutenant colonel, you're not gonna be doing that same thing. And I love seeing lieutenant colonels and really high up officers that are in shape. I think that's fantastic. But at the same time, they don't have to be running 13-minute 2 miles like, they could have it be like a 15-minute, right? Like the standards for what they need to do is different. And it's the same thing for NCOs. When you're a private, when you're a specialist, when you're like a lower tiered sergeant, like E6 and below, you're gonna be actually doing more of the stuff. Then you reach E7, you're gonna be doing a little bit more admin. Then you reach E8 Master Sergeant, you're gonna be doing a little more admin. Then you reach First Sergeant and Sergeant Major, and then Command Sergeant Major, you're gonna be doing way more admin stuff, and you're not gonna be doing that grit and grinding of what the lower enlisted soldiers are doing. And so I feel like I've rambled on and ranted on enough on this, and that's kind of my gist of this. And I think it's really stupid that they're making the standards this low, in my opinion, that they're making the standards this low. And I think that a lot of it has to do with the age neutralness of it, right? So gender neutral, I think, comparing an 18-year-old male, 18-year-old female, same standard, great. Comparing an 18-year-old male to a 50-year-old whoever, I feel like that's a little bit different, because not only, like, even if they had the same MOS, like you have an 18-year-old enlisted soldier and a 50-year-old enlisted soldier who's probably like a sergeant major or something like at that point in time, the roles and responsibilities, even though they have the same MOS, are going to be complete. So for example, the heavy, right? So the best you got to be, infantry soldiers, combat related MOSs, the minimum score is going to be 18 minutes for a 2 mile run. Yes, the 2 mile run's at the end of these 6 events, so you're going to have 5 more events, so that is a roll, but 18 minutes for a 2 mile run is completely attainable for people that are going to be in those kind of MOSs. I think that should really, the minimum, in my opinion, should basically stay the same. Maybe raise it like 10 seconds or something, because in my opinion, like 10-15 seconds for a 2 mile run is actually a big difference. And then dropping down to the next tier, the minimum is 19 minutes, which is ridiculous. And then the bottom tier, right? So the bottom tier, a totally non-combat related MOS, it's like 20 minutes and 7 seconds for this proposed, like 21 minutes actually, 21 minutes. Like you could be running a 10:50 pace mile and be passing like that. For somebody who's my age is like ridiculously slow. Like you are not in shape for the military, in my opinion, if you are doing a 10-minute pace mile run and you're in the military. Now if you're like I said, in your 40s or 50s or whatever, and you're in the military, you're higher up, if you're doing a 9-10 minute mile pace, that's like more understandable, right? But like a 17-year-old, with who's got, I don't know what MOS is, I'm just gonna say 25 Bravo because that was my old MOS. Like 25 Bravo doing a 10-minute mile pace, like, and that's acceptable and it's passing, like that should not be the case in my opinion. Then we got the release push-up, which the push-up in the new ACFT PT test is gonna be different. You're gonna be basically starting on the ground, doing a push-up. When you come back down to the ground, you're gonna actually rest on the ground and take your hand off of the ground. And it basically goes, the minimum for heavy is 30, then 20, then 10. And I'm like, 10 push-ups? Like, And it's not even push-ups. Like you can rest on the ground. You can't rest on the ground, but like you can take a little bit of tension off of your chest for a split second there, right? And only doing 10 push-ups as the minimum, that's kind of, again, like 10 push-ups. Really, like the Army, we're gonna have 10 push-ups be the minimum to be a soldier. Another stupid thing in my opinion is the leg tuck. Like the minimum for a soldier to do the leg tuck is 1 time. Like a non-combat related MOS, 1 leg tuck, which if you guys don't know what the leg tuck is, you're hanging from a pull-up bar and you are taking your elbow up, or your knee up to your elbow 1 time. Just 1 time in a whole however many minutes, 2 minutes, like, gosh. And then the final thing that I'm gonna complain about before I finish off this video is the deadlift, right? So the deadlift, the minimum is 140 pounds, right? I mean, I'm just sitting here looking at these scores and thinking, like, what? Like, these are the new standards? Like, I thought this PT test was supposed to be to make you more combat ready. And yes, I know it's related on your MOS. I know that if you're in a more combat related MOS, the PT test minimum is gonna be different. It's gonna be harder. But even still, I'm just like, I think it's what, 180 pounds for the deadlift with a hex bar. It's 180 pound deadlift with a hex bar is nothing. And I know that I am a stronger person and I can deadlift way more than 180 pounds, but like 180 pounds for a combat MOS, like if you're picking somebody up with their gear on, I don't, like if it's a 120 pound soldier, like you only weigh 120 pounds soaking wet, and then you put on all the gear that you're gonna be in whenever you're in combat, and you're gonna be having ammo, you're gonna have your weapon probably strapped on you, which is another 10 pounds, you're gonna have your Kevlar, you're gonna have all these things, like it's gonna be 200 pounds, even if you are 120 pounds. So I am honestly a little bit upset by this. This is just the proposed things, but it's by a pretty credible source, and they got the Army logo plastered all over this thing. So it's a pretty credible score that they're going by off now. You know, I guess this is what they're using to test people, and I really do hope that they increase the minimums just a little bit, because it's just it's too, in my opinion, in my personal opinion, this is my personal opinion, Matt Ward's opinion, the standards are, the minimums are too low for the standards. I think they're just across the board, the minimum standards are too low. My solution is, instead of having like 8 or 9 different tiers of age brackets as you get older, just have like 2 or 3, right? So as you, basically a private is gonna have a different PT test standard than a, you know, sergeant first class. Like, so when you're in for like 10 years of the military, you know, at that point in time, your standard for your minimum could change a little bit, because you're gonna go from being, you know, a 17, 18-year-old to a 30-year-old. And then whenever you go from like a 30-year-old to 40 plus, the standards can change a little bit, because again, you know, if you're enlisted for 20 years, you're probably gonna be a sergeant major. If not, you've been a first sergeant for a while. And if you're an officer for 20 years, you're probably a lieutenant colonel. If not, you've been a major for a really long time. So the roles and responsibilities are completely different. Let me know down in the comment section what you guys think. I think I've said enough of what I actually think. I mean, this video is probably going to be a good minute. So if you made it to the end of this video, hit that like button. Just smash the like button. Like, if you wish the standards were better, and I know some of you are probably struggling to hit those numbers, but you got to understand, you know, this is the Army. This is the military. It's not the civilian world. You know, yes, if you can do a 10-mile run, you know, or a 10-minute run pace for a mile, 10-minute mile run pace, like, as a civilian, it's really not that bad. You know, you're in pretty good shape, I guess, if you're doing that, if you can do that. You know, you're not, you know, dying and can't complete, you know, 1 mile, but this is the military. Even if you're not in a combat-related MOS, you could get attached to, you know, some unit that is in combat. If, like, freaking, God forbid, World War III comes out, like, hopefully that doesn't happen. I swear I hope that doesn't happen. But, like, if something bad were to happen, it doesn't matter what MOS you are. You're still going to have to all do things to help save and run and so yeah, I'm a little upset. If you guys are too, hit the like button, leave a comment down below what you guys think. I hope you guys have an amazing day. Oh, follow me on Instagram and Snapchat if you haven't already. and I will see you guys later.